It happened in the blink of an eye. One moment, my daughter was laughing as she wheeled herself across the front lawn, the sun casting golden light on her braces. The next, a scream cut through the air. No medical gear on the lawn. Karen, the HOA's self-appointed enforcer, was standing over her, fury in her eyes. Before I could react, she yanked at the leg braces, ripping them off, the sound of metal clanging against concrete echoing like a cruel symphony. My heart raced as I rushed forward, but it was too late. The damage was done. The crowd gathered, whispering in disbelief. The woman who thought she could control everything had just crossed the line. I couldn't yell, I couldn't explode. Instead, I watched, every muscle frozen, my mind calculating every possible move. The flowers Karen had trampled underfoot, the ones she destroyed in her rage, they weren't just any flowers. They were the roses my late wife had planted, each one a memory I held dear. She didn't know, of course, but I knew, and soon so would she. The morning sun filtered through the curtains, casting a warm glow across the living room. The hum of the coffee maker was a steady, comforting sound as I sat at the kitchen table, reviewing the papers for the day. It was a simple, peaceful routine, one that I had come to cherish after years of navigating through the chaos of a demanding career and personal loss. As a lawyer, I had seen my fair share of battles, not the kind you see in movies, but the quiet ones. The ones where words were weapons and strategy was everything. My life, though far from ordinary, had found a rhythm in its tranquility. Every morning, I would prepare breakfast for my daughter, help her get settled in her wheelchair, and watch the world outside unfold. A world that, for the most part, seemed unaware of the complexities I faced in my own quiet corner of it. The neighborhood was calm, quiet even. People knew each other, nodded in passing, and kept to their routines. The HOA meetings were the highlight of their week, a place where they could complain about anything and everything, from lawn heights to mailbox colors. I had learned long ago to stay out of their petty squabbles. After all, I had more important things to focus on. But that morning, something shifted. Something in the air felt different, like the calm before a storm. The kind of storm you can't avoid, no matter how prepared you are. And I was prepared, or at least I thought I was. It began like any other afternoon. The sun hung high, a lazy breeze rustling the leaves in the trees. My daughter, Emily, was sitting on the front porch, her favorite spot. She loved being outside. Even if it was just for a few minutes, her wheelchair positioned just right so she could feel the warmth of the sun on her face. I watched her from the window, my mind focused on the quiet hum of work. Life was routine, and I was okay with that. Then I heard it. A sharp, abrasive voice broke through the calm. "You can't park that here. No medical gear allowed on the lawn." I stood, instantly alert, my heart racing in a way it hadn't in years. I didn't need to look to know who it was. Karen, the self-righteous woman from the HOA, with her strict rules and even stricter opinions. I rushed outside, but by the time I reached the front step, she was already standing over Emily. Karen's face twisted in a sneer, her hands gripping the leg braces Emily relied on to walk. "This is a residential area, not a hospital," she yelled, her voice laced with disdain. Before I could say anything, Karen jerked the braces from Emily's legs, the metal scraping against the ground in a jarring noise. Emily cried out, panic flashing across her face. The anger surged within me, but I held it back, just barely. I couldn't afford to lose control. Not now, not with an audience of neighbors starting to gather. But it didn't matter. The damage was done. "And no medical gear on the lawn," she screamed again, as if the sound of her voice could somehow make it true. The sight of my daughter in pain, helpless on the ground, was all I needed. My hands clenched into fists, not out of rage, but out of something colder, something quieter. In that moment, I knew the fight was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. I could feel my pulse in my ears, but I forced myself to slow down, to breathe. This was not a situation for blind fury. No matter how badly I wanted to scream, to charge at Karen and make her understand the depth of what she had just done, I stayed still. Every instinct told me to rush in, to fix things with one decisive action, but I knew better. There would be no peace in that. No control. I glanced at Emily. She was trembling, her eyes wide with confusion and fear, but she wasn't crying. Not yet. I couldn't let her see me lose composure. Instead, I knelt beside her, gently reassuring her with a quiet, "It's okay, sweetheart." My hands moved slowly, carefully placing the braces back into their rightful position on her legs. But my mind was already elsewhere, calculating, analyzing, assessing. Karen's voice still rang in the air, but I blocked it out. My attention shifted to the group of neighbors now standing at the edge of the sidewalk, watching, some with concern, others with that familiar, judgmental curiosity. They were no different than Karen, caught up in the drama of the moment, waiting to see how it all played out. I straightened, turning my gaze back to Karen. She hadn't noticed my stillness, not yet. She was too busy enjoying her moment of power, the small audience hanging on her every word. But I had a plan, and it wouldn't be made in the heat of the moment. It would be made in the quiet aftermath, with precision. Every move would be calculated, every word chosen with care. Karen had just made a fatal mistake, but I wasn't going to react emotionally. I would respond with strategy. I would let her feel the weight of what she had done, but in her own time. The silence hung between us like a heavy fog, and in that stillness, I could already hear the first steps of my revenge. The days that followed were a slow burn. Karen's actions didn't disappear after that afternoon. They spread. The whispers started, the murmurs of the neighbors, their divided opinions on what had really happened. Some of them saw the truth of the situation, felt the injustice of it all. Others, however, saw it as just another small infraction, a minor conflict blown out of proportion. But what they didn't see was the toll it took on my daughter. Emily, once full of life, retreated further into herself. She spent hours in her room, eyes downcast, her usually bright smile dimmed by the embarrassment and the humiliation of it all. She didn't understand why someone would hurt her for simply being herself. I couldn't explain it in words that would make sense to her. What I could do, however, was make sure that Karen understood exactly what it meant to hurt someone who had no defense. The HOA board called for an emergency meeting. Karen had made sure of that, her voice rising, her accusations of my supposed neglecting of community standards gaining traction. I knew what she was doing. She was trying to make me out to be the villain, to twist the narrative in her favor. She would use her influence over the neighbors to isolate me, to paint a target on my back. But she didn't realize how far I was willing to go. As the meeting loomed closer, my interactions with the board became increasingly strained. I could feel the pressure mounting, the sense of injustice building in my gut. Still, I didn't react. I kept my cool, kept my plans quiet. Instead, I started to gather my allies. Not the loud ones, the ones who would shout and make a scene, but the quiet ones. The neighbors who had seen Karen's behavior for what it truly was. One of them, Mrs. Carter from 2 doors down, had witnessed the whole scene, from the moment Karen ripped off Emily's braces to the chaos that followed. She approached me one evening, her face lined with concern. I saw what she did, and I won't let her get away with it. "I'll stand by you," she said quietly, her voice steady. I nodded, thankful. "We'll need more than just your word. We need evidence. We need something concrete." She smiled faintly, nodding her head. "I have something. I was recording when it all happened. I thought it was strange at the time, but I knew something like this might happen. The pieces were falling into place. Slowly, but surely my plan was taking shape. Karen might have thought she was untouchable, but she hadn't accounted for the people who could see the truth, the ones who wouldn't let her win this time. The rising tension in the neighborhood, the division between the people who backed Karen and the few who saw her for what she really was about to reach its breaking point. And when it did, it would be on my terms. The evening before the HOA meeting, I sat alone in my study, the soft glow of the desk lamp illuminating the file spread out in front of me. It was quiet, almost too quiet, but I welcomed the stillness. It gave me time to think, to plan, and to prepare. The truth was, most of the people in this neighborhood had no idea who I really was. They saw a father, a quiet man who kept to himself, who ran his legal practice with precision and discipline. But that was the life I had chosen. The life I had built to protect my daughter, to shield her from the ugliness of the world, including people like Karen. I picked up the file labeled Karen Middleton, HOA violations. It was thick with documents, emails, and even some personal notes from when she had first moved into the neighborhood. The more I sifted through it, the clearer it became. Karen had been using her position on the HOA board to manipulate, to bully others into submission, all under the guise of upholding community standards. It wasn't just about a lawn or medical equipment. It was about power, her need to control. But what the neighborhood didn't know was that I was a far more dangerous opponent than they realized. The quiet lawyer they all underestimated, he wasn't just a lawyer. I had connections, legal leverage, and influence that ran deeper than any HOA bylaw could contain. I had built my career fighting for people who couldn't fight for themselves, and now I would fight for Emily. In my drawer was something that could change everything. My legal license to practice, signed documents from board members I had previously represented, and a list of community leaders who had seen Karen's actions for what they were. With this, I could bring her down, legally and socially. But I wasn't going to make my move yet. Not until I had everything lined up perfectly. I called Mrs. Carter to arrange a meeting. "Do you have the footage?" I asked when she picked up. "I do," she replied, her voice tinged with relief. "It's all there." She didn't know I was recording, but I caught the whole thing. The part where she ripped the braces off, the way she humiliated Emily. "It's clear as day." "Good," I said. "Meet me tomorrow morning before the meeting. We'll take it from there." I ended the call, leaning back in my chair. I knew the game I was playing, and I knew how to play it well. The next day, when Karen stood before the HOA board, with her smug, self-righteous attitude, she would be met with an unexpected force, one she could never have anticipated. I wasn't just going to expose her for what she had done to Emily. I was going to show the neighborhood who she really was. And when she fell, it would be her own weight that crushed her. The hidden power I held in my back pocket wasn't just a legal document. It was the quiet, calculated revenge that would deliver justice, and I was ready to unleash it. The morning of the HOA meeting arrived with an unusual calm. I had prepared myself for this moment for days, weeks even. The time for passive observation was over. Now it was time to act. I had all the pieces in place, the evidence, the support, and the strategy. My first step was simple: ensure the HOA board saw the truth. The rest would unfold like a well-rehearsed performance, each move calculated with precision. Mrs. Carter arrived early, carrying a small, discreet folder. Inside was the footage she had recorded. Every second of Karen's tirade, the cruel way she had humiliated Emily, the blatant disregard for the law. But it wasn't just the footage that I needed, it was the context. I had already compiled the HOA rules and bylaws, which clearly outlined the protections for medical equipment on private property. I would use Karen's own words against her, coupled with her history of petty violations, to dismantle her facade piece by piece. In my office, I double-checked the evidence I'd gathered. Emails, text messages, and recorded conversations between Karen and various board members. Each piece of data was a bullet in my chamber. I could feel the calm authority within me growing stronger, the quiet confidence of someone who knew their opponent far better than they realized. I glanced at the clock. The meeting would start in an hour. My plan was set. The next step was simple: ensure the board members understood the gravity of Karen's actions, without resorting to emotion. This was not about revenge. It was about justice. The neighbors, especially those who had witnessed the incident firsthand, would need to be reminded of the importance of truth, of standing up against manipulation and cruelty, regardless of who it came from. They needed to see that this wasn't just about a set of leg braces or some minor infraction. This was about integrity, dignity, and protecting the vulnerable in our community. I met with Mrs. Carter one last time before the meeting. "We'll present the footage after I make my statement," I said quietly, my tone calm, collected. "We want Karen to be forced into a corner, but we also want to ensure that the truth speaks for itself." She nodded, her hands trembling slightly, but I could see the resolve in her eyes. "I'm ready. Let's do this." The calm before the storm was palpable. I could feel the weight of the moment, but I wasn't nervous. I had been here before, standing in front of a jury, presenting facts, demanding the justice that was owed. This wasn't just about winning. It was about making sure Karen understood that her actions had consequences. It was about making her realize that she had underestimated the wrong person. I walked out the door, my posture straight, my mind focused. Today, Karen would learn a lesson she would never forget. The HOA meeting room was buzzing with the usual chatter as I entered, but the atmosphere shifted when I walked in. A few heads turned, whispers running through the crowd. I could feel Karen's eyes on me, cold and calculating, but I didn't flinch. I simply took my seat at the back, waiting. The meeting started as usual, with the board members going over trivial neighborhood concerns. Fence heights, lawn care, the color of mailboxes. I tuned out their voices, letting the sound of their words fade into the background. They were all just noise. The real business was about to begin. Karen, sitting smugly near the front, held the floor, making her case about community standards and her concerns over my daughter's medical equipment. "It's simple," she said. "Rules are rules. No one is above them, especially not someone who thinks they can flaunt the law with medical gear on their property." I kept my gaze on her, watching every subtle movement, every shift in her posture. She was digging her own grave, making her accusations louder with every word. The room was growing uneasy, but no one had said anything yet. Everyone was waiting for someone to step up. I stood, the room falling into an expectant silence. "I'd like to address that," I said, my voice steady, calm, but carrying the weight of authority. All eyes turned to me. I could see Karen's face tighten, her eyes narrowing, but she didn't speak. I began by outlining the HOA's rules regarding medical equipment and accessibility, the protections for individuals like Emily. "It seems there's been a misunderstanding about what this community stands for," I said, my voice unwavering. "This isn't just about breaking rules. It's about how we treat each other. And Karen, you've shown us all exactly how you treat someone when you think no one is watching." I motioned to Mrs. Carter, who stood and walked to the front, handing over the small folder she'd been holding. "What you didn't know, Karen, was that someone was watching. Someone saw everything you did that day. And now we have the proof." The room was silent. Every gaze locked on Karen as Mrs. Carter began playing the footage from her phone. There it was, Karen ripping the leg braces off Emily, the harshness in her voice, the way she humiliated her in front of everyone. You could hear the shock in the voices of the other neighbors as they whispered among themselves, but I was focused on Karen's face. Her confident mask was slipping, the cracks widening with every second of the footage. When it ended, I turned to the board members. "This is not a personal attack on Karen," I said, my voice even and controlled. "This is about holding someone accountable for their actions. No one should feel unsafe or unwelcome in their own home, especially not someone who is already facing challenges beyond their control." Karen opened her mouth to speak, but the words caught in her throat. She looked around, but there was no escape. She was trapped, the truth suffocating her. Her influence, her control over this community, was crumbling. "You're all free to make your decision," I continued, "but I hope you choose wisely. This is about more than just a violation of rules. It's about the values this community should stand for: respect, dignity, and care for one another." The board remained silent for a moment. The room was heavy with the weight of truth, and Karen's defiance faltered, replaced by a nervous desperation. I could feel the shift. The power, once so firmly in Karen's grasp, was slipping away. It wasn't just my words that had done this. It was the evidence, the undeniable truth that had exposed her for who she truly was. Her fall had begun, and there was nothing she could do to stop it now. The silence that followed felt like an eternity, but in reality, it only lasted a few moments. The board members exchanged glances, unsure of how to proceed. I could see the doubt in their eyes, the shift in their stance as the weight of the evidence sunk in. Karen's confident facade had crumbled, and the room was now filled with a quiet tension. The chairperson, Mr. Thompson, cleared his throat. "We need to address this situation, but I want to remind everyone that we are here to focus on the community's best interests," he said, his voice wavering slightly. He was trying to maintain control, but even he couldn't hide the unease in his tone. Karen's face was a portrait of frustration and humiliation. She opened her mouth to argue, to defend herself, but no words came out. She was trapped in a moment of pure vulnerability, exposed in a way she had never imagined. "You can't just accuse me of something like this," Karen finally managed to stammer, but there was no conviction in her voice. "That's not what happened. That's not how it went down." I raised my hand, and the room went silent again. I have no interest in continuing this baseless argument. "The footage speaks for itself," I said, my tone cutting through her stammering words. "But it's not just about the footage, is it, Karen? It's about how you've manipulated this community for your own gain. You've used your position to bully and control people, to make them fear speaking out. You've used your influence to silence those who didn't fit your idea of what this neighborhood should look like." Her face went pale as the truth settled over her. This was no longer just about the incident with Emily. It was about the larger pattern of control and abuse she had exercised over everyone around her. The members of the HOA who had been too afraid to speak up, the neighbors who had silently endured her bullying. It was all coming to light now. "You're not in control anymore," I continued, my voice firm. "The community you've built on fear and manipulation is crumbling. This isn't just about Emily anymore. It's about all of us standing up to the tyranny you've imposed on this place." Karen's eyes darted around the room, looking for someone, anyone, to back her up. But there were no allies left. Not anymore. The neighbors who had been hesitant to take sides were now whispering among themselves, some nodding in agreement with what I had said. The shift in the room was palpable. The power dynamic had completely flipped. Mr. Thompson finally spoke again, his voice more authoritative now, as if he had found his own resolve. "I think it's clear that Karen's actions are in violation of not just the HOA's rules, but the values we should all hold as a community. We will be discussing further actions, but I believe an immediate suspension from the board is necessary." Karen opened her mouth to protest, but her words were lost in the growing murmurs from the audience. She was no longer the center of attention, no longer the one holding the power. She was simply a woman exposed, her actions laid bare for all to see. "You've made a mistake, Karen," I said softly but firmly, "and now you will live with the consequences." As she stood there, speechless and defeated, I could feel the weight of the moment settle over me. This was more than just a victory. It was the end of Karen's reign over this neighborhood. It was the moment when truth and justice had taken their rightful place. And as I looked around at the board, the neighbors, the people who had once feared speaking up, I knew that the power had shifted. It wasn't about her anymore. It was about us, the community standing together, refusing to let one person dictate our lives. Karen had lost, and the neighborhood had won. The next day, the HOA meeting was called to order again, this time under very different circumstances. The energy in the room had shifted. The board members, though still tense, carried themselves with a newfound strength. They were no longer afraid to stand up, to do what was right. The whispers of support for Karen had all but vanished, replaced by a steady determination to restore balance. Karen, now sitting at the back, was a shadow of the woman she had been the day before. Her eyes darted around the room, but no one acknowledged her. The other members of the HOA, once her loyal followers, now seemed to look through her as if she were invisible. The power had left her, and she couldn't get it back. Mr. Thompson addressed the board first, his voice steady but tinged with a quiet resolve. "We've heard all the evidence. We've seen the footage, and we've seen the damage that has been done, not just to one family, but to the integrity of this community." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle over the room. "We can't allow this to continue. Karen, you are hereby suspended from your position on the board effective immediately." The words hit Karen like a hammer, but there was no protest this time, no venomous response. She simply stared at the floor, her shoulders slumped in defeat. The control she had clung to for so long had evaporated, and she was powerless to stop it. But the true poetic justice wasn't just in her removal from the board. It wasn't in her diminished reputation or the loss of her influence. No, the true justice came from the community's response. They rallied together, standing tall in support of Emily, of me. Karen had built her power on isolation, fear, and manipulation. But in the end, it was her cruelty and her need to control that had isolated her. The community, the people who had once been hesitant to speak up, were now united. Mrs. Carter, along with several others who had witnessed the events, took the lead in drafting a petition to formally amend the HOA's policies, ensuring that no one would ever be subjected to the kind of humiliation and mistreatment Emily had faced. The bylaws would be updated, stricter rules put in place for how medical devices and disabilities were to be treated in the community. And as for Emily, she was finally able to move forward, the weight of Karen's cruelty lifted off her shoulders. She still wore her braces, but they no longer felt like a symbol of vulnerability. To her, they were simply a part of who she was, a strong, capable girl who refused to be held down by the cruelty of others. As for me, the quiet justice I had sought was served. The calm, calculated revenge I had carefully crafted had brought about the kind of resolution that would ripple through this neighborhood for years to come. And though I had fought for Emily, for our family, I had also fought for the truth, for the dignity of everyone who had ever felt powerless. Karen had been stripped of her influence, her position, and her reputation. But the real lesson here was this: no one, no matter how powerful they thought they were, was beyond accountability. And in the end, it was the community that had won. The quiet, steady power of standing together, of speaking the truth, and holding one another up, had triumphed over manipulation and fear. As I left the meeting, Emily's hand in mine, I felt a quiet sense of peace. The storm had passed, and with it, a new chapter began, one where justice had been served, and where we, as a family, could move forward stronger than before. It's strange how quickly life can shift, how the balance of power can change in a single moment. I had spent so much of my life trying to keep my daughter safe, to protect her from the forces that sought to harm her, but I never expected that the greatest threat would come from someone in our own community. As I sit here now, reflecting on everything that has happened, I'm reminded of the power of calm, of how, in a world full of noise, the quietest voices are often the ones that carry the most weight. I never raised my voice, never allowed my anger to dictate my actions. Instead, I chose precision, strategy, and patience. And in the end, that was what made all the difference. The lesson is clear. The world doesn't always make sense, and sometimes it's easy to feel powerless. But the truth is, we all have more power than we realize. We have the power to stand up for what's right, to fight for justice, and to protect those we love. In the end, I didn't need to become the villain to fight Karen. I simply needed to be the hero of my own story, the one who chose to act, to stand firm, and to never allow cruelty to go unchecked. What would you have done if someone tried to take away your child's peace? If you were faced with a bully who thought they could control your world? Tell me your thoughts below. And remember, the quiet power of standing up for what's right is always within us. Subscribe for more stories of justice, revenge, and the fight for truth.